Well, CES is finally over, but I still wanted to make the HTC video, so here we are. So there's a couple different things to touch on. The first one I want to go on to, though, is the Vive Pro Eye. It's basically the exact same thing as the Vive Pro, which I actually own one of those. I actually have a Vive Regular and a Vive Pro. So this one's the same exact specs, nothing different, no cable changes, no resolution changes, anything. But they've added Tobii Eye into the device itself for that foveated rendering method that was talked about at the NVIDIA press conference. And what this is wherever your eye focuses inside, because it actually watches your eye, wherever it's focusing, it actually tracks that and makes that the highest quality, highest rendered portion of the screen that you view for your viewpoint, and the rest of it can be dropped down to half, third, quarter resolution to save on processing power. So you can run games at higher quality, higher detail levels, better textures and everything without sacrificing the performance to have to render everything that's on the screen. It's a kind of a trick to get around the demands of VR, being that you have to render two eyes at once, two screens at once, which is a lot. Now, there's no word on pricing, but they did say it's going to release Q2 of 2019, so it's just around the corner. I have a feeling it's going to be something around the area of $900 to $1,000, because you can get the Vive Pro right now for $799, and unless they lower that price, there's going to be at least a $100, $200 tack on just for this eye feature. Personally, as an owner of a Vive Pro, I'm not jumping on this. I mean, it's a really neat thing, but I really don't want to spend another $1,000. I wish they would just figure out a way to make an attachment or something that would just fit into the existing ones to get this same ability rather than having to do this. Now, there should be that option because there is an ability to connect in a USB device into the Vive Pro, just like the Vive original had, but I guess Vive or HTC, the guy just decided to go to the route of just releasing a whole new headset instead. Another thing I want to talk about is Viveport Infinity. Now, Viveport is kind of like, they call this like the Netflix of gaming for VR games, essentially, for, well, Vive headsets specifically. And it's basically a subscription service where the original Viveport that's existing now, you can get, I believe there's 3 and 5 game versions where each month you can pick 3 or 5 games to download that month and play completely free, no strings attached. And then the next month you can pick 5 new ones or 3 new ones, whichever, and it's just month-to-month basis such as that. And there's so many different titles to pick from, but you're stuck with those 5. Once you pick those 5 or 3, that's all you get. You can't turn one in and pick another one out. Like, it's just those 5 for the month. So it's kind of a little bit disappointing because you have to deal with that for a month. Whereas Infinity comes around, this is the unlimited version, so you can literally pick from any of them at any point. You can delete one, download another one, you can fill up your hard drive as much as you could of VR games with this Viveport Infinity, which is a really cool subscription model, but no pricing has been mentioned, so I'm very curious what this is going to cost to have that feature. I believe the 5 a month is $8.99, so $9 a month or $10 a month, I believe. I can't remember the exact pricing. But so I'm curious what this Infinity is. I have a feeling it's probably going to be around the pricing of $20. They're probably going to just double the price on it. But no mention of that pricing. The only thing they did tell us, it will start April 5th, which is apparently Vive Day, which I think it's because that's the first day the original Vive came out. They also mentioned that they're working with Mozilla on FireFox Reality, which is basically a way to get VR into web browsers with an API and everything, and which is a really cool idea. Alongside that, there was a partnership with Amazon service, AWS, which is Amazon Cloud Services, about bringing WebVR to the market. So it makes me wonder if there's going to be an option at some point, maybe not too soon, where you could kind of shop Amazon in VR. So another thing they're working on is called the Vive Reality System. This was actually hinted at before with the Viveport software, where if you started it up and bypassed, you could jump out of the Steam VR, which is the current starting point to using HTC Vive headsets. With Viveport, this Vive Reality System, they kind of hinted at it in the original Vive software that's software out right now, where you kind of have like a little walkout platform, and in front of you can see like the new games or movies or things that you want to download, and off the side you can kind of see like a list of friends or what's downloading, or even like your own installed games off to one side. With this, you have like your own home starting world thing. So Steam VR Home already has that, or Steam VR has that with what they call Home, and you have like your own little room and like a little patio, and you can design it and put things around, like you can make it look how you want and save that, or you can use existing or create your own kind of home places. People do them all the time. There's tons of them. You can invite friends over and you can move stuff around or like draw in the air and stuff. And so it's kind of like a limited experience, but it's really neat to have. With Vive Reality System, it's going to go beyond that. It's going to be your starting point, but it's like this whole giant world that what they showed was more like a futuristic kind of walkways and gardens and everything. But I imagine you can kind of customize it to your own likings, maybe add new things. But it's more about even bringing your friends over again for social interaction, but to play games, watch movies, or even design things together. It's a whole kind of social interaction. And what you also have with that is what that base place is called is Origin. That's the name they're giving where your home starting point is. So it's basically Vive Reality System with Origin as your home. And they also have a thing called Lens, which to me is basically, I describe it as like a portal that you can use to view, to make change settings, interact with other people through it, see who's online, visit their worlds, change yours, start new chat sessions or watchings, video watchings or things like that. So it's kind of like the control panel essentially is what I guess I could describe that to Origin and the Vive Reality System. The last one I just want to talk about is called Vive Cosmos. This has been making the most splash of all the HTC stuff in the news lately, and for good reason. When they kind of first showed it, it almost looked like in the video, which I'll show here. My first thought was it's basically the Oculus Quest or HTC's version of Oculus Quest, which Oculus Quest is Oculus's version of a standalone VR headset that's more powerful than just the generic, usual phone setups they had with the Samsung Galaxy phones. Like it's something a little bit beyond that because it'll be all in one unit, but it's still used as mobile hardware. So this one though is not. It's actually a premium PC VR headset that's coming about the end of this year. They said later 2019, but I'm going to imagine it's probably like a holiday 2019 thing. If they get it out in time, of course, there's things that are going to set that back. But it's a premium PC VR experience that does require connection to a device, a platform is what they kind of called it, they specify a desktop computer or a laptop computer, but it looked like they hinted at mobile as well, because at one point when they're showing the headset, there was like a kind of outline of a mobile phone sitting inside the headset, like kind of resting inside of it, which hints at the idea that maybe you could plug into one of those. Now it's possible that HTC could release a phone later this year that can connect into this and power it and control it. It probably, I imagine, require like a battery pack along with the headset, but that would be a really neat idea if they did, because what it sounds like this is going to have is a virtual link USB-C connection, which RTX cards have, which if you remember during the NVIDIA press conference, they hinted saying you should pay attention to HTC's press conference for use of foveated rendering and the virtual link cable. So this might be that thing. It might be using a virtual link USB-C cable, and maybe the HTC is going to release a phone that actually has this connection ability using the USB-C. Now again, this is not a standalone unit though. This does require connection. So it's kind of like, I don't want to say it's a follow-up to the Vive or Vive Pro, and it's not quite a downgrade. So there's a difference. There's a lot of differences here, and we're going to go over a couple different things. So it is like I said, it is a wired device connection, but it does have inside-out tracking. Now, what inside-out tracking is when there's cameras on the device that do the tracking by what they see. Windows mixed reality headsets use this already, and they have, you can see if you look at those, they have two cameras on the front, and basically in a wide-angle lens that's like something like out. And just in front of you, like 180 or 170 degrees, I believe, or 180 is what it can view. It can see directly what's in front of you, even in front. So when your hands are in front with controllers, it recognizes them. If you bring them all the way behind you, it can't see them. So that's what inside-out tracking is. And the great part about that is it doesn't require base station sensors like the lighthouses that Vive uses to be mounted to your wall or anything like that, which Oculus uses as well, the Oculus Rift. It doesn't require those. Those don't have to be mounted. So you can actually take this anywhere. You could put it in a bag, take it to your friend's house or whatever, unpack it, plug it into their computer, and you have an instant VR setup without having to plug in any extra devices. So it's really, really neat. But it has, like I said, it's got its limitations. So the interesting point on this one, though, is there was two cameras in the front, but there's also one on each side, which no one has done yet that I've seen in the inside-out tracking VR headsets. So this is interesting. It's got the full, otherwise, amount of freedom, but if the tracking's right, it would cover everything in front and almost everything to the side, and almost kind of going backward, but obviously not directly back unless they had another camera somewhere. So it does have that limitation, but at least it expands it. So if your hand's over here, it will see this. So that's really, really cool to see that they've added that on. So that's why I say it's not quite an upgrade or a downgrade, because the sensors are the most powerful because it sees everything around the controllers and whatnot. Whereas this can only see what's in view of those sensors. But then again, it is a bit better in other ways. One of which is the next thing, which is the lenses itself. They're calling them real RGB. lenses that rumor says they're 2 times the resolution of the Vive Pro, or about. Now this comes about because Qualcomm actually develops kind of reference headsets, and a lot of their things that they've shown off before have ended up in headsets like HTC's Vive Focus. That headset actually had a lot of things that Qualcomm created in a reference headset, and Qualcomm put out another reference headset this year at CES that had all the same looks and designs as this headset, this Vive Cosmos, but it had a higher resolution. Specifically, the resolution was 2160 by 2160 on each eye at 90 hertz. Now, to give a comparison, the Vive Pro is 1440 by 1600 at each eye at 90 hertz. So there's definitely a jump in resolution, and that's why I say this is kind of like an upgrade from the Vive Pro, but with the inside-out tracking, it's kind of not, because you don't have the amount of quality tracking you have with the Vive system. So it's an interesting device that's coming around. It does have 2 controllers. The controllers actually represent the Windows mixed reality ones. That's the best I can just kind of describe them, because whereas Vive had a full hand controller with a ring, these ones have the hand controller, but a ring goes around kind of where your hand is, which the Windows mixed realities have. Not a bad design. I don't mind it, but you do lose the trackpad, which is kind of disappointing because the trackpad actually tracked your hand, and then it was buttons as well, so you're kind of losing a little bit of functionality. I'm curious how they're going to make that work to be compatible with existing Vive games, if they plan to, which I imagine they do. Now, of course, like the other ones, it does have a flip-up visor. That's something that the Vive Pro added and is amazing. Windows mixed reality headsets as well. And it has a new style of headband, whereas the Vive Pro relied mostly on a strap over the top with a little bit of pressure points on the side to hold. This is more like the Windows mixed reality, where it's a single ring that goes around. This is also the same thing you see on the PSVR, and I've actually used one of those, and it's actually pretty comfortable and easy to use. So it's a kind of an upgrade in the band, I guess. And you do also get headphones as well that can flip out. Now, of course, like I said, there's no mention of when this is launching. They just said later 2019, so I'm still assuming holiday 2019. This will be the first headset to use the Vive Reality system that we talked about earlier. So basically, it's kind of like they're building this device and the software as a launch together. Now, for me, I really love my Vive Pro. I use it quite often. I love Beat Saber. I love Super Hot. Super Hot's an amazing game. There's tons of games to play on the VR. I know there's not hasn't been like that title that just drags people in, although I would say Beat Saber is pretty up there to me. But I'm not sure whether I'm going to jump to this or not right away. I think the pricing is what's going to depend on how quick I might adopt to this, and whether it does have that 2 times resolution, and how its performance is. And also about the cables. The cables could determine a lot as well. So that's all for HTC, though. I don't really have a ton to show about the Vive Pro, or anything that's its actual named successor to the Vive Pro, which is kind of disappointing. But I am curious to see how, like I said, how this Cosmos plays out in the end. And I kind of really want to do want to get my hands on one, or at least I'd love to see some demos, or at least go and try one somewhere at some point. That would be great. If you have any questions or comments, please put them below. I'll try to answer the best I can. Like I said, I might do a wrap-up video of everything, or my things that I loved about CES or something like that. So stay tuned to one of those videos. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate it. I really do. I'm kind of building up the channel. We're starting up. We're kicking off. And there's going to be a lot more coming up. So stay tuned for that. But thank you guys, and you guys have a great one.